Next up on the program today, we have Ilise Benun is in the queue, and Ilise, is your microphone on? Can we hear you?
Hello, I just unmuted, I think.
Sounds beautiful. Am I saying your name correctly?
You are, Mike. Thank you.
Good. Well, Elise is a marketing mentor, and let me just have you first go follow her on Twitter if you don't already at mmtoolbox, and then take a look at her website, mentor or marketing-mentortips.com, because she's the founder of that website. It's a resource for all of us, which are creative professionals. We want better projects with bigger budgets. So, with her experience as a national speaker, she's also the author of 7 business books. There's a lot of knowledge and experience there for you to pick up on. So, follow her and go visit her site. She is presenting to us today um, a very important message, and that is, how to follow up without being a stalker. And we just heard about all these social media platforms, and oftentimes we use social media to follow up, and email, of course, as well. So Elise is going to paint that picture for us. Screen share looks great on your end, so take it away.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mike. And thank you to Alex and Anastasia and everyone for including me in this awesome day. I've been watching along and it's been very interesting. And you're right, Mike. I am all about keeping the human aspect in what is becoming more and more automated when we start staying in touch with and reaching out to people. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about is the actual conversations that you can have and that some people avoid when it comes to basically marketing yourself and your services. So the presentation is called How Not to Stalk Your Prospects and Still Get the Project. And I, as Mike said, am a mentor and business coach. I work exclusively with creative professionals. That includes designers of all types, copywriters, illustrators, photographers, consultants, etc. I'm also one of the programming partners for How Design Live, which is a very large design conference in the US. And I've written several books, including The Creative Professional's Guide to Money. So the premise of this presentation and of all of the work I do lately, in fact, is the idea that there is no such thing anymore as job security, at least in the US. I know that even if you have a job, it could be gone at any moment, and it's kind of like being self-employed and having one big gorilla client who might on any day decide they're done with you, and that's a really dangerous position to be in. So I believe that you must and that you can take control of your business and your own career, and that you should be doing it at all times on an ongoing basis, because if you wait until you lose your job or you lose your 2 or 3 big clients, it is too late. And so everything I'm going to talk about includes the nitty-gritty, basically the nuts and bolts of how you do that. And it's really, really simple. And that's my mission in life, is to simplify something that is in fact very simple, but people tend to complicate for all sorts of psychological reasons that I'm not going to go into because I am not a psychologist. But it is as simple as identifying your best prospects, in other words, the people you want to work with, the companies you want to work with, and pursuing them. The problem is your mindset. The key to doing this well is to have the right mindset, and unfortunately, many people do not. There are 2 options, really, when it comes to the right mindset. There is the one I hear the most often, which is, I don't want to bug them. Why would they want to work with me? What do I have to offer? Everyone else does something like what I do, or they are already working with someone. You can hear the whining in there. It's inherent in that mindset. And of course, that is the wrong mindset. The right mindset is something along the lines of, I have something to offer that I just know will help these specific people if only they knew about me. You have to trust and be confident in the fact that you have something of value to offer. And your goal is to connect with the people who need it, not everybody. And the mindset, if this hasn't been made clear yet, is give, give, give. You want to use your generosity as your best resource, and I'll show you how. To do that, you must stop relying on word of mouth. I have a little rant about word of mouth because really so many people glorify it and think it's the best marketing tool out there, but the truth is it's not a marketing tool. It's what happens when you wait for things to come to you. It's essentially the same as taking whatever comes along. And you may like what comes along, you may not like what comes along, but if all you do is wait for word of mouth, then you are at the mercy of whatever comes along, no matter what it is and no matter when it comes. And this is not necessary. So the opposite is to stop relying on word of mouth, to decide who you want to work with, and then you position yourself for them. And positioning yourself for them is essentially knowing what they need and highlighting and emphasizing the things about you and the way you work and the work that you do that speaks to and potentially cures the needs that they have. The actions to take when you are doing this, again, this very simple, find the people you want to work with and pursue them. It's very simple. You introduce yourself to them, you follow up, and you stay in touch. I'm telling you, it is not more difficult than that. And there are variations on this, so I wanted to share one possible sequence, and then I'm going to actually go into detail with some actual examples. So one possible sequence of introduce yourself, follow up, stay in touch is you start with a warm introductory email message. And yes, this is done digitally, but it's warm, it's personal, it's customized, it's designed and written specifically for them, and they know it, and they can tell by reading it. And that's what makes them be open to it, and that's even what might make them respond, although you should not expect them to respond because they may not right away. So again, the sequence, you start with a warm introductory email, then you connect with them on LinkedIn and or Twitter, and I was glad to hear Ben right before me talking about the fact that for business, LinkedIn and Twitter are the most effective because that is what I find too. Then you follow up. I like following up with a phone call because hardly anyone these days follows up with a phone call, so that will set you apart. And if they actually answer, then you have an opportunity to talk human to human with another person about what they need and set yourself apart and actually make a much stronger impression than you would just by email. But if you're afraid of the phone, then you can try to follow up by email. That's still just as good. And as you are doing this, at some point you're going to ask for permission to stay in touch with them, to put them essentially on auto drip, because it's very likely that at the moment that you reach out to them, they're not in their moment of need, and so they may be interested, but they don't have time to think about it, and they really don't have time to look at anything, but they want to remember that you exist, and so putting them on auto drip, and I'll say more about what that is, basically takes the responsibility off of them to remember that you exist and puts it onto you to stay on their radar. That is your responsibility. That's all there is to it, I promise you. So let's go into a little bit more detail about these elements. So step one is the introduction, where your job is to get their attention. It's not to get a project. It's not even to get a response, although sometimes you will. Your job here is to get their attention. You want mental real estate. And again, I remind you that the right mindset is one of generosity. What do you have to give to these specific people? Think about it that way. One of my favorite examples is a client of mine. His name is Rob. He's an animal cartoonist, and he customizes his introductory email message by drawing a picture of the prospect's animals with their names and sending it to them along with this A variation on this message, I took the liberty of drawing you a picture with your pet's name. I hope you don't mind. Everybody loves cartoons, and I think cartoons like this would be a great marketing tool for your business. They'd make your business stand out from the rest. I have many more ideas for your site. Would you like to discuss how it works and how much it costs? And if so, just reply and we can set up a short call. You'll notice that these are very short messages, 3, maybe 4 paragraphs at the most. They get right to the point and they ask questions. Questions trigger responses. Don't ever say, hope to hear from you. That's a surefire way to get people not to respond. I love this example. By the way, this PowerPoint is available, and in the footer here, you should see a little link, and it will be at the end too, where you can download the PowerPoint. It's gettalk.at/stalking. So you'll see that in the PowerPoint here. Okay, how else can you give when you're introducing yourself to a new prospect? So let's say you come across something, their website, a project they worked on, a product they just introduced, and you're impressed. You can give your compliments, and you can say something like, I wanted to reach out and say how impressed I was with your latest whatever. The media was beautiful to look at, and I love how it all came together. That's why I think we may be a good fit. You want to tell them that you think it's a good fit and see if they agree. You're not going to force them. You're not going to convince them. You're going to put it out there. You're going to offer it and see if they agree. This person goes on to say, I'm a local photographer, videographer, designer, whatever, and I work with your type of company. You want to drop a couple of names to increase brand awareness with high production images that push the boundaries for retail and social media. Very succinct, very elevator pitch. That's the information they need so they can decide, is this a good fit or not? Again, ask a question. May I come in and show you some of my work? Or would you like to see some samples? Or may I stay in touch with you? Anything. That's what works. Another way to give, you notice a problem. You can say something. You're not criticizing them. You're not telling them their baby is ugly. You're saying something like, I noticed you don't have a blank on your site, and that's actually something I provide. I noticed your site isn't responsive, and maybe you're not aware of it. If not, I can help. Blah, blah, blah. And finally, introducing with generosity. When the news prompts an idea, you are brimming with ideas. You have all sorts of ideas to share. You want to share them with these people. So you can say something like, your latest announcement this week about X got me thinking, and then you share your thought. Or, I read this week about something in the news and it got me thinking about your business, and you connect it to that and you demonstrate that you are thinking of them and you have ideas that they may be able to benefit from. And finally, have you ever thought about blank? I'd love to talk more and share some of my ideas with you. People will take you up on that kind of offer when the timing is right. So that's the introduction. You're getting their attention. You may not know if you've gotten their attention because they may not respond right away. In fact, this morning I was talking with a woman who has a housewares company, and she goes to trade shows, and she was pitched by, oops, not good. There we go. She was pitched by a trade show designer, and she was very happy with the way the woman was pitching to her. She did it the right way, and she said, I never respond to the very first message. And I thought, that's very common. Many people do not respond to the very first message. You have to follow up if you want to be taken seriously. That speaks volumes. So if you don't follow up, if you give up, if you get discouraged easily, if you say, oh, they didn't respond to me, and then you never reach out to them again, you have totally wasted your time and theirs. Don't do it. Step 2, follow up, even if they haven't responded yet. The idea here, again, is share. Be generous. Share what you have. Don't be stingy. Don't worry they're going to steal it. Please don't worry they're going to steal it. Ideas are a dime a dozen. In your follow-up, some of the ways you can share is through social media. Connect with them on LinkedIn and share their posts, or share the articles that they publish on LinkedIn Pulse, or share their status updates. Follow them on Twitter and retweet. This all generates a lot of goodwill, whether they see it or not. Follow them on Instagram. Do whatever the social media says you can do, but share on all the platforms that they are on so that you're part of their arena. Then, part of step 2, follow up your introductory email. So here's an example. I'm just following up on my message from last week. Don't wait a month. 1 week is plenty. I'd love to work with you on your next trade show booth, and I have lots of ideas I'd be happy to share. Notice again the word share. May I send you samples of work I've done for, drop a few names that might be familiar to them, and if now is not a good time, may I stay in touch via email. I have a nifty monthly message I send out with trade show tips. Note, this is the same thing as, can I put you on my list? But you should never say, can I put you on my list? Because nobody wants to be put on another list. But here, what you're emphasizing is the fact that you use email to stay in touch, and that's what they will want you to do. Trust me, if it's a good fit, if they need your services, they will want you to stay in touch. And they might say yes to this. And even if they don't, you have asked permission, and I tend to err on the side of opt out, meaning that I will put someone on my email list if I've had if I've had some contact with them. Even if they haven't responded, I am familiar to them, and then I will stay in touch by email with my quick tips. That was the link that Mike mentioned before, marketing-mentortips.com. So let them know what they're going to receive, and then send it to them to stay in touch until they tell you, or unless they tell you not to. Another important way to follow up is to follow up after meeting someone at an event. I cannot tell you how surprised I am when, and I do a lot of networking, people do not follow up after an event. I don't know, maybe they put the business cards in a pocket and forget to take them out. I have no idea what happens. But if you follow up after an event, then number one, that will make you stand out. That will speak volumes about how professional you are, how interested you are. And the whole point is that you never know what's going to happen in the future, what they're going to need, who they're going to talk to. And if you don't follow up, then again, you've wasted all of your time and effort. So here's an example of a message that is a follow-up to meeting at an event. It was so nice meeting you in Boston at the Design Summit a couple weeks ago. Now that you're back at work, I wanted to take a quick moment to let you know I'm here if you ever need a freelance designer to help with overflow work or to give a fresh eye to a project. So what I like about that is it's very specific about what they have to give. I can give help with overflow work, or I can give a fresh eye to a project. Remember, this is all about generosity. Then I've worked with blah, 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 and I've done this, and here's what one person said about my work. I don't have to worry when I give you a project. I know it will be done right, so you sneak a little testimonial in there. That can be very helpful. And then you end with, again, very short email. Would love to continue our conversation, but if now is not a good time, may I stay in touch via email? Here you're asking for permission to send them your little email newsletter. You can even follow up after an event when you didn't meet them. I love this, actually, about the digital world. You know how on Meetup, for example, you can see who attended or who didn't attend or who meant to go but didn't show up, and you can use that information in your follow-up. So here's an example. I came across your name on the How Design Live attendee directory. Some events post the list of who's attending. You might have to do a little legwork to get their contact information, but it's worth it because it makes your email message very warm and personal. I wanted to reach out and introduce myself. I'm a freelance designer. I specialize in blah, blah, blah. I've worked with blah, blah, blah. Here's something someone said about me. Here's a little testimonial. Here's a link to my information. Would love to chat briefly and see if we might be a good fit. If you're interested, let me know when would be a good time, day and time to discuss. Again, get right to the point, tell them what you have to offer, and let them decide if it's a good fit. All right, so that's step 1, the introduction. Step 2, the follow-up. Step 3, this is actually the most important part, is the cultivation, which is staying in touch for as long as it takes. I've been doing this for almost more than 25 years, and I have people who've been on my list for almost that long, and sometimes some of them have not reached out to me yet because they're not ready, and that's fine with me. As long as they are still being cultivated, I know that when the time is right, they will reach out to me and say, I'm ready to work. It happens constantly. So don't assume anything about what people do or don't need, because you don't know. Let them decide. So as part of your cultivation, this is actually where it may feel like you're stalking because they're not responding, but believe me, your version of stalking is nowhere near actual stalking. I know that to be true for all the creative people I've ever worked with. They feel like they're stalking. They're barely reaching out, all right? So again, if you do it with this attitude of generosity, and just remember that all you have to do is give, and the people who need it will respond and reciprocate. So in the cultivation stage, here are some examples of the ways you can give. You can send relevant resources to show that you're thinking of them. So you say something like, I found this article on this website that may be beneficial as you folks progress. Or I wrote this article. Here we have content marketing. I wrote this article on this topic and I thought it might be helpful. Or I published this white paper on this relevant topic and I thought it might be helpful. Or I heard about this website. Do you know of it? Or tell them about an event either before or after you go. This is from a local client here in New York who is trying to get into the real estate world, and he found this event and he told his one prospect that he was pursuing about the event. Let me know if you plan to attend. Even if they don't respond, it doesn't matter. It shows you're thinking of them and that you're learning. And then finally, put them on auto drip. So this is some kind of email newsletter. It should be at the most monthly, at the least quarterly, but this is you taking responsibility for your career, by the way, for your business, and for their remembering that you exist, basically, for maintaining the connection. So here's an example from one of my clients, Cleveland Design. Notice that it's very short. There's not a lot of information, and it links to other examples. And here's another one from Maureen Adamo at maureenadamo.com, and she curates content. So here is her email newsletter. It's called Oh Contrarian. She's a beautiful writer. She shows that off in her little message at the top. And then if you scroll down, you see just little snippets of content and links and things that she finds interesting that demonstrate her aesthetic, that just by her curating it shows what's important to her. And again, here she's giving away information that she has found interesting. And if you like it too, then you may be a good fit. maureenadamo.com. Now, I wanted to include one section that is a little bit further down the line where you're actually going to have the money conversation, the negotiation, because I find that people avoid this conversation in the first place, and then even when they do it, don't do it well for themselves. So what's happening here is finally you have the payoff. You've been staying in touch, you've been following up, and they finally have a project and they reach out to you. And now it's time to talk money. I want you to remember that this is a conversation and not a confrontation. If it's a confrontation, this is not a good prospect for you. And the corollary to share, and give here is ask, ask, ask. You have to ask for what you need. So you ask for their budget. And when they say we don't have a budget or we don't know what our budget is, which is usually what they say, you push back. And you don't do it in a rude way. You do it in a way that will get you the information that you need so you don't waste your time on a proposal or an estimate that they can't afford. And the way you do that is you put some numbers on the table. So when they say, we don't have a budget, what exactly does this mean? It's actually very confusing, and I think that's part of the problem, because it could mean the sky's the limit. We don't have a budget. We can spend anything. It's not very often that's what it means, but sometimes it does. And if that's the case, then you should say, let's see what you need, and then we'll price it. All right? It could also mean we don't have a budget, could mean we have no idea what it should cost, which means that you need to educate them. And that means you should say, all right, let's start with a range. It could be anywhere from this 3 figures to these 4 figures. How is that? And amazingly, magically, when you put some numbers on the table, they suddenly know what their budget is. It's the most amazing thing. Oh, no, it's not that 3-figure number. It is somewhere near those 4 figures. Or, oh, no, it's not that 4-figure number. It's much more closer to the 3 figures. we don't have a budget could also mean we haven't allocated a budget, but we do have money. So again, you put some numbers on the table by saying something like, well, do you have 3 figures or 4 figures? And here I'm saying put some actual numbers. Do you have $500 or $5,000? Do you have $5,000 or $50,000? They can be very wide ranges, and they can be, you're not saying these are the prices, you're just trying to get a feel for what ballpark they're in. And finally, we don't know what the budget is could mean we literally have no money for this. And if that's the case, and they're still asking you to do something, you should say something like, well, I can't afford to do this for nothing, but the minimum I would need to charge is X. Again, you're putting a number on the table. Is that doable? And then you decide. If they refuse to answer any of these questions and they won't give you a number, to me that's a red flag. I would walk away. But here's what you need to do. Assess what is the potential for this project or client long term. Assess what would it take to price it, how much time would it take, how much effort would it take, how many people would I need to talk to, and then you decide, is it worth that effort to price it and not get it, because you may very well not get it. Or should you do some marketing instead with that time you would otherwise spend pricing this project? That is your choice. All right, wrapping it up before we take some questions. So again, the very simple, generous place that you're coming from to introduce yourself to the ones you want to work with, follow up, stay in touch, and when it's time to negotiate, you ask for the budget and you put numbers on the table. So again, as I said, you can download the PowerPoint, and I also have a little freebie download called the Money Talk Cheat Sheet, and you can get that at gettalk.at/stalking. And some more resources. I'll just leave them up while we're doing question and answer.
Fantastic. At least we just saw, I think the first touches from social media, and then this presentation kind of takes us into the next stage, and that is, where that journey starts, where that conversation starts. And you mentioned you've got lists that are 25 years old, contacts that you're still reaching out to, waiting for that right time. And I think that's my biggest takeaway. Thank you very much. Is that you just stay loyal to your contacts. We've got a question that I wanted to start it off with, and that was, trying to quantify, have you seen averages, like how many touches it takes before someone will actually convert and buy a product or buy a service?
It really depends on how qualified they are, but one of the things that is kind of standard in the industry is it takes 7 touches for someone to actually even respond. So keep that in mind. And then conversion, I don't know what the metrics are, but I do think it depends on the quality of the prospects and how far along you are with them in the buyer's journey.
And one thing that I've seen is subscribers that come to you for information to self-teach or to learn on their own, and then go out and put it into practice, that might not ever become a customer. What do you feel is the value there?
Well, I think that if someone can do it themselves and they don't need me, then that's great, because they're not a good prospect for me. I'm a teacher, basically. And but I want to benefit from them learning from me if I can, and so that's why I have done courses for Creative Live, for example, or some of the products in my online store basically allow you to do it yourself. But I have to say that those end up being really good marketing tools for me, because even if someone could do it themselves, they often need a sounding board. They need some feedback. They need some help. And so I'm always surprised at how the people who buy my products end up becoming clients.
Fantastic. Thank you for that answer. And once again, Ilise, thank you for your presentation and walking us through that. a journey on how to properly follow up with our contacts and prospects.